And that's what I mean by it. And the kinetic energy of love, an essay on icons. That'll be the first reading that I do. Seems like so many people are out of control this month. And there's just been attacks coming from everywhere, just out of the blue. And finally, I just realized I have to keep my silence and not engage in arguments with people that try to draw me into arguments about stuff. I care about people and I try to do the best that I can. But some people just seem to be very aggressive this month. And I don't know where it all comes from. Even the fact that I say that I'm living here by myself, for some people becomes something to try to argue with me about. And I don't understand it. So I just learned to keep my silence. And I was listening to something this morning on the lives of the saints, oh shoot, I'm going to forget the name of the saint now for some reason. One of the saints was saying how important it was to keep your silence and guard your heart, and to not use all your energy trying to fight and argue with people, because that's what the evil one wants. Sometimes keeping silence is the best thing that we can do. It's the most important thing we can say with our silence. So the first article that I'm going to read for us is on the kinetic energy of love, an essay on icons by Dr. John Amir Ezervan. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining me. God bless you. My wife once fell from a swing. Although she was not hurt very badly, her phone rang immediately after. Her loving mother miles away nervously asked in person, "Oftadi, did you fall?" Only recently did I learn that there's a word for this phenomenon. Simulpathity. Recent case study research has attested to its reality, thus affirming what the faithful have always believed. We are not merely sophisticated animals, beasts with the power of speech. We are not reducible to or totally confined within our bodies. We act not only through, but also beyond our bodies. Of course, long before such studies were conducted, we learned this truth from the Holy Scriptures. For though I am absent from you in body, St. Paul told the Colossians, I am present with you in spirit, Colossians 2:5. To put it differently, the research is slowly acknowledging that the fact that love is an energy that connects people across geographic and even eschatological distances. But what does this have to do with icons? When we kiss the holy icons with sincerity, we emit love for the people depicted or symbolized in these images. Are we not obeying Christ's command? John 13:34. In doing so, we should think of love as kinetic energy, as symbols as a medium through which this energy passes. When one prays for another, he typically refers to him by the symbol of his name. This sign serves as a conduit through which his love can reach its referent. So when someone says, I can feel your prayers, perhaps he is not trading in cheap sentimentality, but is expressing a genuine experience of this energy. Why then reject icons? For these images are also symbols and, therefore, portals that channel our love towards certain referents, such as Christ and his saints. Indeed, books including the Bible, which Christian iconoclasts otherwise honor, could be regarded essentially as collections of images. After all, an image is a visual representation of something. and words visually represent ideas, concepts, and objects. Thus, as St. Theodore the Studite noted in his first refutation of the iconoclasts, Christ's image was drawn in writing by the apostles and has been preserved up to the present. Whatever is marked there with paper and ink, the same is marked on the icon with varied pigments or some other material medium. Essentially, reverencing icons and prayer fall under the same broad category of devotion. In both cases, we are transmitting something, example, a request, a feeling of gratitude through the spiritual realm. The refusal of many Protestants to embrace these symbols of faith, these written and painted channels of love, seem to stem more from a subconscious cultural bias than from a reading of Holy Scripture. If I were a betting man, I would consider putting money on there being a strong statistical correlation between cultures in which people kiss sacred objects and those in which people kiss one another when greeting them. Today's Christian iconoclasts who are aware that the ancient catacomb churches of Rome featured sacred art normally stress a distinction between using religious art as decor and venerating it. The former is fine, but the latter is idolatrous, they will say. However, this distinction is less meaningful in the Mediterranean and Eastern European cultures, where the things people love or respect, as well as the objects that symbolize them, are instinctively kissed. In predominantly Protestant America, we are not averse to venerating objects. We are just culturally raised to venerate differently. Although the American flag is not normally kissed, one does often place his hand on his heart when saluting this symbol, and he still correctly senses that there is something problematic about burning it. In short, we overlook the fact that iconography is not just a doctrinal issue, it's also a cultural issue that turns on the less significant question of whether you love or venerate with your lips or some other part of your body or your mind only. Dr. John Amir Hazarvan, 12/1/2025. I have icons on my wall, and it's so helpful when I can look at my icons and think about Jesus, think about St. Olga, St. Herman, St. Xenia, St. Spiridon, St. Evdokia, the Virgin Mary, the Theotokos, all right here. When I ask them to pray for me, I can remember them and think about them and realize that they're real. It's not something fake, it's an actual connection. And they're hearing my prayers. They're hearing my asking them to pray to God for me. I do another quick reading. Xenia the Visionary. Xenia lived in Russia in the 1700s and lived a comfortable life. She was married to an imperial colonel whose name was Andrei, and apparently they were well off. She was still young and in good health when he died suddenly one night at a drinking party. The unexpected death of her beloved husband completely shattered her whole world. She was 26 years old and childless. The distraught widow looked around herself, at all her possessions, at her pointless little world, and suddenly began to realize the vanity and transitoriness of all earthly joys and treasures. She came to realize that there is true value only in heavenly treasures. To the utter amazement of her friends and relatives, Xenia began to give away all that she possessed. Her money and all personal belongings she gave to the poor, and she gave away her house to a friend. Finally, her relatives decided that she had taken complete leave of her senses and considered her mentally unbalanced. Having realized that there can be no true happiness on earth and that worldly possessions are only a hindrance to attaining the true joy in God, she suddenly vanished for 8 years. It was at this time that Xenia was called to the highest feat of spiritual perfection, that of foolishness for Christ's sake. This is the state of appearing to this world as totally crazy, when in fact the sanity of the person is just beyond this world. There is in the fool a total understanding of life and death, good and evil, love and hate. There's a complete reconciliation with God, while the world says it's madness. Xenia returned to her hometown, dressed in her dead husband's old uniforms, and thereafter would only respond to her late husband's name. Until her death, people called her Andre. It was as if she had hoped in some way to take upon herself the burden of the horrible state of his drunken soul at his death. Sorrowing for his sins and for her own, she began to wander the streets of the poorest area of the city. Wherever she went, people would persecute and laugh at her, and on some occasions throw mud and rocks at her. With complete meekness, however, she kept before the image of God, who suffered without a murmur, heard all accusations, bore all persecutions, and suffered terrible torture and crucifixion. Because of God's example, she bore all hardships with silence, saying, God, forgive them, for they don't know what they do. Those who felt sorry for her would give her some spare change or some clothes, but she, in her selfless love for mankind, would turn around and give all the gifts away, leaving nothing for herself. Through prayer and suffering, Xenia was reconciled with God. Thus God was in her and she was in God. For her uncompromising love, she was revealed as a visionary and had the gift of seeing the future. Sometimes she would hit at the approaching illness or death of someone in order that they might prepare themselves for their fate. On one occasion, Xenia was seen to be weeping both day and night. When someone asked her why she was weeping, she only replied, there is blood, there is blood, there is a river of blood there. And she began to weep all the more. In the days following, there was a bloody murder, and her tears bore witness of it before it happened. For a long time, no one knew where Xenia spent her nights. One night, a local police officer followed her and discovered that the elderly woman spent her nights in an open field, praying in all season and all kinds of weather. Xenia truly bore that faith in which all things are possible. While still living in her body, her soul always soared above this world, dwelling in a living direct communion with God. Thus we could say that the foolishness of God is wiser than men. My hour is struck. I shall go forgetting father and mother. I shall rinse my shirt white in the waters of the foolishness for Christ. I'll venture out into the back roads and dark alleys of my seduced land. I shall go in a worn-out robe and put my hat right down to my brows. My feet will be in their briars, and my face and hands in sweat and dirt. Each passer-by will shun me, as if afraid to catch my disease, and I shall be chased out from everywhere, and everywhere I will be like a scarecrow. And to deluded human beings in foolishness will venture to say something to them, but unlistening people especially will dismiss me, preserving eternal calmness, and somehow matter-of-factly will stone me. But getting up, I will continue my interrupted path along towns and cities, and with human scorn from all sides, they will pressure me so that I will not be able to breathe. But at night, when the blizzard blows, hiding in the dry grasses, I will be tired in the fields and groves, seeing where I could rest my head. And I will be like a madman, trembling, sticking my fingers to warm them in my mouth. And that which people have not crucified, December frost will finish the job. And when my soul will part from the body, the boredom will disappear forever, and I shall go to Christ in a white shirt, which I so diligently rinsed. Father Roman about St. Xenia. So I'm going to make some food quick, brothers and sisters, and I'll be on a little bit later. Need to pick out some more readings for us tonight. This is a little bit earlier than what I'm usually on. So I'll see you all back. Maybe an hour, maybe a little bit sooner. I love you all. You're all my family. God bless you all. See you in a bit.